Welcome to the Survival Guide for Orthodontists, the podcast that makes you the authority in orthodontics in your community. Get ready for insights on how to compete on expertise and trust against mail order and retail orthodontics. It's not always about the lowest fees. And now, from the People in Practice team, your hosts, Dr. Leon Klempner and Amy Epstein.
Welcome to the Survival Guide for Orthodontists. I'm Amy Epstein. I have an MBA in marketing and 20 years of marketing communications experience. I co-founded People in Practice with my dad just about 10 years ago.
And I am Leon Klempner, a retired, very proud board-certified orthodontist, currently teaching part-time at Harvard, and proud father of Amy Epstein, I might add.
Today, we're very excited to have Dr. Pham join us on the Survival Guide for Orthodontists. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Pham. Can I call you John? Is that okay?
Sure, please. Dr. Pham is my stage name. You can call me John.
Okay, awesome. We're thrilled to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
John is an entrepreneur, former aerospace engineer, and practicing orthodontist. John is also the co-founder of InBrace, which you may have heard of. Prior to InBrace, John spent years at Boeing as an engineer and startup entrepreneur, then went to UCLA for his dental degree and USC for his orthodontic residency and master's degree in craniofacial biology. Can anyone match that? I don't know. That's really impressive. We're looking forward to asking you a bunch of questions. So if it's okay, I'm going to dive right in to InBrace, which is what we invited you here to talk about, although I think we're going to have a coffee and talk about your background and how you got here. But with InBrace, tell us a little bit about the technology. And I've been, reading up on it. We have some clients that use InBrace, and we know about the SmartWire technology. So we'd like to talk a little bit about that as well. So tell us, what is it and how does it work?
Yeah, thank you, Amy, Leon, all the listeners out there. It's a pleasure to be here. When we think about InBrace, we like to think about it as InBrace is designed for you, made for real life. And, what that means is that we wanted to offer something for, first of all, patients where they can eat, brush, and floss, live life as they normally would without being sort of having any compromises. The compromises that aligners and conventional braces force you to endure. And for providers, we wanted to have something that can offer great outcomes, great patient comfort, and really to set things on autopilot. And that's really sort of the nature or the genesis of what the InBrace SmartWire technology really is.
So I know we have questions that we both want to ask you. Well, the SmartWire in particular. So you said autopilot. So can you expand on that just a second before we ask you our next question? Yeah,
I think the world as we know it is moving more towards frictionless convenience, set it and forget it. Even me, when I was in aerospace, we were moving towards airplanes that were more automated, rockets that could fly themselves. And when I got to orthodontics, and we were looking at how things were being done in orthodontics, a lot of it was still being done the same way as before. And, the whole notion of InBrace was really trying to rethink the whole teeth straightening experience, not just for efficiencies, not just because of digital, but more importantly, to bring in a whole new type of consumer. Amy, I know you have an MBA, so if you look at the market, I'm sure 3 out of every 4 people need some kind of teeth straightening. In the US alone, that amounts to 175 million people who can afford teeth straightening, who are buying products like Botox, LASIK, hydrofacial, cold sculpting, right? But they're not opting into teeth straightening. In fact, less than 5% of people who need teeth straightening are actually opting in. So us orthodontists, we think we're doing fine. But if you actually look at the market, we've barely tapped into it. The question is why? So your question is what InBrace is. Sometimes I like to also frame it what InBrace is not. right? What InBrace is not, it's not conventional braces, which works for maybe 3 to 4 million people each year, where you show up every month, you open your mouth, the doctor does all the work, and you're behind bars for 2 years, right? Aligners came in, made it a little bit less ugly, a little bit less dorky, but put all the work on the consumer. And I know I'm using words here that's pretty jarring, right? Braces are beautiful to some, but to 175 million people, it's not, right? So what can we offer to consumers that doesn't make them put all this work in, doesn't make them look worse before they look better, and helps them so they can enjoy their treatment from day one, as it's sort of, creating the smile that they always wanted. And that's again what the purpose of InBrace is. And over the last few years of doing this, raising $175 million and the support of the orthodontic community, we're proving it. The typical InBrace patient, Amy and Leon, is 30 to 40 years old, is making over $75,000 a year, and has always wanted teeth straightening but has never opted in. It looks nothing like a typical orthodontic practice, which tells us that we're growing the market, not cannibalizing the market. And that's what I'm super excited about. That's what true innovation is about.
Well, John, I mean, you're speaking our language. I mean, you're talking to marketers here, and we represent ortho practices and collect tons of data. So, we're well aware that we are tapping into maybe 5% of the available market out there. So expanding the market is exactly how practices are growing. And that's why I love the concept of InBrace, because it addresses the pain points that consumers have, like the visibility of wearing braces and the uncomfortable feeling of an adult wearing a lot of metal. So I mean, we love the fact that you've introduced this into the market. My question to you is, there are a lot of different lingual braces, and I think there's a lot of growth in that market. Last podcast we had Medipicar, Brius, another form of invisible braces, quote unquote. So just tell me a little bit about how you feel InBrace differentiates itself, and why would our listeners that are considering a variety of different lingual appliances choose InBrace?
The only similarity between InBrace and lingual braces is that we're on the lingual surface. But as the word lingual braces says, it's just braces on the outside that you put on the inside, right? It's all predicated on sliding mechanics, which is something that's over 100 years old. InBrace really reimagined the whole entire sort of teeth movement experience. We have a new modality of tooth movement, actually, we call programmed non-sliding mechanics. And it's actually based on over 25 years of digital research, digital orthodontic research that we've done at USC. So if you ever want to learn about the science of InBrace, you'll see that we've been pioneering this for over 25 years with over 20 publications in the AJO and the JCO. But how is it different? Again, that's like asking, how is a Prius and a Tesla different, right? And I think the opportunity in business is always the unknown unknowns that society doesn't see. But when Tesla came to the market, all of Wall Street thought the people who bought it would be Prius people. It would cannibalize into Toyota, right? And electric vehicles have existed for 20 years, so it's a niche of a niche. But look at us now, right? Every single car company now is talking about electric vehicles, and Tesla itself is worth more than the top 6 car companies combined. So, I think as more folks try to move into the space, it's just, validation for us that we're doing the right thing. Just like as Tesla blazed the trail, and every other car company coming in, it's just validating that EV is the way to go.
Mm-hmm. So Does the smart wire come into play? You talked about how Invisalign took away the metal, but then put the onus on the consumer or the patient to make the changes weekly or biweekly. Does the smart wire come in on the provider side to allow the work not really to shift to them because the smart wire has so much built into it? I'm still, as someone who's not an orthodontist, talk to me about how the smart wire comes into play in terms of differentiating the system from other lingual options.
Yeah. Again, the modality of tooth movement that we've created here is called programmed non-sliding mechanics. And I'm going to get sort of geeky here, but what we know as conventional braces, as we've been taught, is based on sliding mechanics, right? Where all the prescription is put into the bracket, right? Which makes the bracket bulkier and bulkier. And then you got to overcome this element of friction. And no one ever really knows how much force it takes to move teeth. Leon, I see you nodding your head here, right? Mm-hmm. Because in engineering, you call it experimenter's bias. You only know what you can measure, but your instruments themselves have inherent bias in it. And so in teeth straightening, when everything with conventional braces has friction, you really have no clue how much force it takes to move teeth. And so with InBrace, when you've been able to remove the friction using our intelligent programmed loops, everything here is being moved with loop mechanics, which orthodontists knows is the most efficient way to move teeth. Now we can actually program in just enough force to move teeth. And because it's not predicated on sliding, you don't have to come in every single month to reactivate. I'll go to Amy here and say that it's essentially a Tesla that can move teeth on autopilot, right? You program where you want it to go, you set in the smart wire, and it will just gently move and close space, open space, torque, tip, rotation, all those things, all from day one without any interventions. And it's based on, I'm going to go back in history here. When I was at Boeing, the Boeing company, one of the projects we worked on was satellite solar panels. And if you imagine a solar panel for a satellite, it has to fold into this little compact shape so that it can fit inside a rocket and launch into space. But as soon as you get into space and the doors open up, the solar panels fan open automatically into this beautiful shape, right? And if I had a PowerPoint right now, I can show you one of our videos where you can attach, you can create a smart wire in the same way, program the shape of how you want it to fan out, attach teeth to it, and then you can imagine the teeth just moving like that, slowly, gently on autopilot. And so that's the whole concept behind InBrace. Yes, okay. Easier for the provider, but more importantly, easier for the consumer. And you make things easier for the consumer, you can grow the market, grow the TAM, and have what we call abundance mentality here, right? Grow the market for all of us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
And I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this, so I'm gonna hop on this here, right?
Yeah.
I think as orthodontists, a lot of us have been trained to pick from choice A, B, or C. That's how it was in dental school. That's how I got to orthodontics. I mean, everything was a multiple choice test. And when you graduate, you look out in the real world, it's not A, B, or C. Actually, most of the opportunities are things that you don't know are options, right? And as we were dental students, we were competing for 300 positions at the dental school. And as we became residents, we competed for 6 spots in residency. And I think we graduate, we think, oh, there's only 4 million starts to compete for. So we got to be, better, faster, cheaper than everyone else, right? But this is why it's so important what we talk about here by bringing in something that could grow the market, bringing in a new consumer, right? Because then you're not competing in that sort of, scarcity game. You're actually, creating your own market and competing in your own game. And that's what we're trying to do for everybody.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a super compelling position that you have. How, I'm always looking at ways that I can help the practices that we work with, bring in more patients based on what they offer, the services and the technologies that they use. So what can you say in terms of, efficiency or speed to your smile? So shorter treatment time, or, what are the really tangible benefits to the patient that we can promote when we talk about InBrace?
Yeah, great. So what I'll say is that as far as treatment times and efficiencies, we definitely bring all those benefits of digital treatment, and we have papers out there that you can look up online. We can get anywhere between 30 to 50% more efficiencies and more doctor profitability.
So, John, I'm understanding a bit more about the technology and the doctor benefits, but one of my main but one of the main things I want to learn about is how to promote InBrace for practices that use it. And so, in terms of patient benefit, we always put those first when we do social or ads. Or tell me what the major patient benefits are of InBrace.
For the patient, InBrace allows you to eat, brush, floss the way you normally would without braces. It allows you to live your life as you normally would without any compromises. Most importantly, it allows you to get teeth straightening without having to look worse before you look better. Mm-hmm. Right? And of course, faster treatment times and all those things too. But again, if you have something that's not impeding upon people's lifestyle, they're not rushing to get out of treatment. And I knew we were onto something when, as we said in the introduction, I am a practicing orthodontist as well. And what do we normally hear with conventional braces is, can I get this off in time for my wedding? Can I get this off in time for prom? Right? I'm sure we've all heard that. But with InBrace, I had a different type of person coming in saying, can I get this on in time for my wedding? Can I get this on in time for prom? Right? Because this is, again, something that you can actually enjoy the treatment along the way, see the results immediately along the way. And yes, while our treatment times are significantly, quicker, you don't see people saying, I can't wait to be out of this. Because, when we say, wow, starts now, it's because the transformation happens immediately right before your eyes. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Amy?
It does. And I would add, as a consumer and probably who might be, someone who might be a candidate, my dad treated me when I was, in third grade or whatever. And I haven't worn my retainer as much as I probably should have worn my retainer. So in terms of like a retreat case, who as an adult, I'm attracted to this. This sounds like something that would be good for someone like me.
Amy, let's hold up and everybody just stop and listen for a second here, okay? Orthodontists are masters of multiple choice answers. Does it make sense to us now that, Amy, you are the typical retreat person, right? Who is not about finances. I'm sure you can afford any kind of treatment. Your dad's an orthodontist, right? So you can get any kind of treatment you want. How often do we hear about this female, right, working professional who did not wear her retainer, relapsed, comes in and says, Doc, can you please fix this? And the first thing we offer them is this thing you have to wear 24 hours a day. We don't call it a retainer. We now call it a clear aligner, and we expect you to wear it. It doesn't make any sense to me, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why we just think as consumers, again, why something that's not reliant on compliance, that can deliver you the predictable outcomes that we all expect from fixed therapy, right? Deliver it in a way that works and fits the consumer's lifestyle. We can see how InBrace is growing the market.
Yeah. One of the challenges that I had when I transitioned and from braces to clear aligners, lingual was something that I dabbled with a little bit, but found overwhelmingly time consuming and backbreaking to treat because it wasn't an InBrace smart wire. It was a stainless steel wire that needed to be adjusted and changed. And for whatever reason, it took a long time in order to gain the skill set to be able to treat cases well enough that I could introduce it to my patients and look them in the eye and let them know I can get the same result with this versus this. So, with InBrace, for example, is it one wire Is it a series of wires? What is the the ramp up for an ortho to be able to look a patient in the eye and say, you know what, I could do this on the inside. You don't have to wear anything 24 hours a day, and you don't have to have braces showing. What does it take?
Yeah. So, we've been very fortunate to have some of the best folks in the industry that introduced other new categories of treatment to the market. Rich Iverson is on our board of directors, and he was actually the one that introduced Clarity brackets back in the 80s, when all of our colleagues were saying, no one needs clear ceramic braces. People love their metal, right? And then Dan Ellis is actually here today. He was Invisalign's head of sales in 2000 when they introduced, plastic aligners to the market. And again, our colleagues were saying the same thing, like, oh, people don't need this. My patients love this thing that I'm offering. So I think your question was about, how are we introducing this to the market, and how are we making sure that orthodontists are trained up well? So based on sort of the experience of all these people and our own experiences of what we've done, we have some of the best sort of training onboarding processes in the industry. Everything that we do here is backed up by science as well. So every claim we make, you'll see that it's backed up with some kind of peer-reviewed journal. And we really hold your hand through the first 5 cases, 5 to 10 cases, where we have a technology integration specialist and a business growth consultant in there with you, showing you not only chair side how to use this new technology, but also on a marketing front, on a differentiation front, how to educate the community about what this is. And then, like any great product, we have an amazing InBrace in-group, where we have hundreds of InBrace providers in this Facebook group that, Ortho now is all about Facebook groups, where we're all just teaching and learning from each other, right? So from multiple different levels here, we're making sure that we have the infrastructure to adopt and integrate this new technology. In addition to that, we're also integrated to some of the top university programs across the nation, where we can work on research and collaborate with all of the best faculty on bringing the science to the market.
Great. So John, part of the podcast is involving some of our listeners. So if you don't mind, we have a question from one of the listeners. So let's take a minute, listen to it, and if you don't mind responding.
Sure.
Dr. Scott Schwartz, and I practice in North Babylon, New York. John, I have a question. I'm a current InBrace provider, and my patients love it. Can you tell me if you're planning any updates or new features in the future?
Scott, thanks for the question. And folks who know us know that we're always innovating. We're always raising capital. We just closed a $102 million Series D round with some of the top investors in the world, including BlackRock, MVM, Endeavor Vision. You East Coast folks may know all about private equity, but yes, we have a Gen 2 that we're actually launching this quarter, and it brings even more enhanced patient comfort, more predictable outcomes, and brings autopilot to a whole new level. So if you thought Gen 1 was great, Gen 2 is, we should have named it Gen 4 actually, because it's like 3-4 steps ahead.
That sounds great. Well, listen, John, we really appreciate you coming on today. Our listeners, if they'd like to learn more about InBrace or contact you with questions or learn more about what's coming down the pipeline, how can they best get in touch?
Yeah, I think you can visit us on our website. That's www.inbrace.com. It's 2022, so there's this thing called social media, where real users speak about their real experiences. So go on Instagram and visit us at InBrace, and you'll see all the testimonials. And speaking to the orthodontists out here, I'll tell you, it always starts first with the patient, always starts first with the consumer. So you can see all their real life stories there. Thank you, Amy and Leon, for having me here. And thank you to all the orthodontists out there for listening. This is our industry. It's rapidly evolving and changing. Leon, I think the title of this is The Survival Guide. And I think we all went to school. The key to survival is evolution, right? And I'm excited here to evolve and create the future with all of you.
John, you've been great. Thank you. We'll have you back and appreciate your time. And we'll look forward to talking to you more.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You can subscribe or download other episodes of The Survival Guide for Orthodontists on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now YouTube, so you can see our faces as well, or wherever you get podcasts. And if you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate you telling a colleague. For more information about people in practice, you can sign up for our free marketing newsletter at pplpractice.com.
Thank you very much for listening. And for those of you out there that are taking advantage of this new technology, don't keep it a secret. Get it out into the community. It's important to grow your practice. We need to tap into that 95% that are not coming to us. And John's just given you a way of doing that. But it's not enough to just do it. You need to let people in your community know what the differentiators are. What are the advantages to them? And certainly People in Practice does that, as does a number of other marketing companies. The point being, you've got to get the word out. And remember, it has never been a better time to be an orthodontist. This is the golden age. Take advantage of it. So until next time, so long.
Thank you for joining us on The Survival Guide for Orthodontists, where we help your practice grow within a massively disrupted industry. Subscribe to this podcast and connect with us on social media. Find us online at thesurvivalguidefororthodontists.com.